Welcome to the Justin Johnston Show. I'm Justin Johnston. I'm a commercial real estate broker. Past 28 years in Salt Lake, Utah counties, and this is Blake Moore. Welcome, everybody. Blake's our content curator and producer here. So, welcome.
Yeah, we got some great stuff today. So, first off, I don't know if you heard about this new AI called ChaosGPT. Have you heard about it at all?
No, I haven't. In fact, when you sent me the little thing, I'm like, I think he's spelling that wrong. No, he did, because you did it in 2 or 3 spots.
Yeah.
I thought, no, that's what it must be.
Yeah, so I saw this one video the other day. It was Patrick Bet David was reacting to it. And I don't want to get any information wrong, but basically what the video was saying was that there is this new AI that someone programmed to, they put in a request to figure out a way to destroy humanity, essentially, along those lines. And it was like, once you put in this request, there's no going back or something like that. And it gave them the option to like close out of the request. Like if you push this, then it'll like delete the request and you can move on. But if you click yes, then it's going to run forever.
Okay.
And it won't stop trying to figure out how to do it. And so he clicked yes, that he wanted it to just keep going forever to try and figure it out. And I was like, that's a little bit creepy. Like, that's a little concerning.
Yeah,
that
no doubt.
Someone
Reckless enough to just
leave
it to chance.
Yeah, to where it can't be shut down. Maybe if you, like, I don't even know if you unplugged everything and if it could just hop over to like a different computer or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it was saying, that it's one request now it's going to try and figure it out forever. And I was like, I feel like that's where it needs to be regulated. Like, that's concerning if people they're smart enough to know how to make something like that.
Yeah.
And there's just no regulation on it whatsoever. They were able to just type something in that could, I mean, who knows? Maybe nothing comes out of it, but it could.
Yeah, it could.
And so
I think that's what a lot of the people are kind of freaked out about anyway, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I talked to some people and they've got this concern about language model, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about really on this. But we've given instances in past podcasts where it appears that it's thinking, right? It's giving wrong cities, eat glass, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of acting like a human, from at least some of those things. They've got podcasts. They've used it to where Joe Rogan did an interview with Steve Jobs, right? I mean, he's never done that, but they actually interacted, right?
Yeah.
They were able to create the image, right? They've talked about that using terrorists could get my daughter Kennedy or Maddie or my grandson and please help me. Please wire the money, And for all intents and purposes, it looks like it. She's sending me messages. She's interacting.
Yeah.
I ask her questions. She comes back. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So should somebody, I mean, those are pretty big things, right? I mean, in the past, what could you do, right? No video simulation was good enough to do that. It couldn't match your voice, right? We could spend a little bit of extra money and get it to where I'm sounding like Joe Rogan. You could be Steve Jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And but keep our faces, right? I mean, there's some crazy things, right? I mean, everything I say would sound like Joe Rogan. I mean, which is weird, right?
It is.
It would be his voice. I don't even pronunciate things the same way.
Oh, I know.
So it's crazy what you're talking about, right? So editing or regulating it, that somebody's hit, what the hell? I'm just going to, don't turn, and most stuff's cloud-based. It's like when they say, hey, don't let that stupid picture of yourself get out there naked or do something stupid because
it's out there.
It's out there. So, I mean, I don't know.
Even if it's deleted, it can be retrieved in somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's concerning that there are these really smart guys out there, or really smart, just like nerds who I feel like have such a, I don't know, like some deep
Anger?
hatred,
Yeah.
towards like humanity. Maybe they were bullied, and I'm like, if they come up with something that's like going to try and wipe out humanity, like there has to be some way that a governing body or some entity that oversees AI can regulate these things to where it doesn't get completely out of hand in the wrong hands of someone who understands it.
When this comes up, there's actually a couple things that my brain, just you've got that muscle memory. My mental muscle memory goes back when people start talking about the Doomsday stuff with it, right? Because there's a credible part, right? We just don't know, right? And when I hear Elon Musk saying, you know what, maybe we should tap the brakes a little bit on this. Maybe we should all hold off.
Yeah.
And he knows when he says that, that's going to probably fuel some people. It's like, hey, he's going to hold off. We're going to come in and just make the smartest AI thing that's going to destroy the world faster than anybody else. I mean, sometimes you wonder what the hell they're thinking, right? But for me, and it's not probably a very good example, but I'm just going to bring it up now because it is what pops in my head every single time, just about. It was Y2K. Do you remember Y2K?
I mean, I wasn't even born yet, so.
You weren't born yet. And so there was they said when they programmed the original computers that they just didn't think about doing 1986, 1954, whatever it was. They just put 54.
Yeah.
Right. And in the 1900s, halfway through, nobody put 19 something unless it was like an official document, right?
Yeah.
It'd be
54.
54.
Yeah.
I was born in 70. You just said that, and now, anyway. So it made sense to a lot of people, but of course they were saying, hey, when all these things were set up, they thought nuclear power plants were going to shut down, all the waterways and the dams that were going to not be able to operate. I mean, there was all sorts of stuff, right? I actually myself leased several buildings to people that were going to actually can food, right? Because it was like the end of the world, and they were going to go in and do this, and they spent money on this whole canning operation. The cans are rolling up and loading up, and you got people over there, and I went in to watch it. And it was like, this is crazy. I thought it was a little bit at the time, but you know what I mean? We all have that, right? So they were convinced that, everything was going to
shut
down. It was just going to start, drawbridges weren't going to open, or they were going to just open and stay open, or, you know what I mean? Like, ships were going to lose navigation system, the satellites were, anything you can think of.
Doesn't make sense.
And people were talking like, hey, it's Y2K. And say, we were too stupid to think about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's a little archaic when you go, now we're talking whether there was a digit. What ended up, there was like a couple things, and it was like in Russia or like in Africa.
Yeah.
And they're not even 100% sure if it was tied to that, right? It's like, did it happen at midnight? And, and then there was a question like some people, well, was it going to happen international dateline? Was it actually going to be in each time zone? Or was it going to be like, so all this stuff's happening. My daughter Kennedy, she was due January 1st, 2000.
Oh.
And the doctors want to make sure, just for cautious, that they started by wife and to have her be born, and she's born on the 29th, right? So a couple days earlier. And anyway, a lot of funny little stories, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, where I'm going with that is like, I don't know, you know what I mean? I guess, my thought is with this, and what they also found out with Y2K, is there was a lot of computers that were developed afterwards. A lot of the software was working on 1999. You know what I mean? It was already converted. Most of the stuff had literally been converted. Why that got out that way was a lot of fear. We worry about things that especially if we don't understand it all the way. And it's like, who would have thought that when they invented the first computers, when they did program it without the full date of year, which ended up not making a big difference, but that everything was going to be operated by it.
Yeah.
Now, that was 23 years ago. It was nothing, right? Compared to what is now. Everything's digital, everything's... And we've actually tried to make it so it is smart. Artificial intelligence, we're forwarding, pushing that.
We're trying to make it think for us. We don't even want to mess with, like we're trying to say artificial intelligence, and then it just does the thinking for us, and we take the information it gives us, you know?
Yeah. So there's a couple thoughts here, and I don't know if this is the right format to bring them up. I'll just say it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had some thoughts. You know, we want to think that they're going to carry out like they're a human. Like, you know, whenever something really bad has happened, not everybody is a serial killer.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very small group. So when we find out the stuff that they were doing, Jeffrey Dahmer, and he's eating their organs, and we're pretty, the average person's pretty like, holy crap. I mean, my brain's not even gone there, right? So like, we all get angry, and we're all capable of like, one more thing, and I'm going to punch you, right? Or something happens, and they take your kid, and just you flip, right? You just go crazy. But the intent wasn't to like cut the guy up, and it's just like stop him. Yeah. Maybe hurt him, right?
But probably not even kill him.
Yeah, just stop the situation that's going. It's like most people are going to hold back, right, up to that point, and you know. That's why the average even soldier comes back with PTSD and a lot of things that they have. I've now done that, so I don't want to pretend to. The point is, I'm trying to get at is that I don't know if the computers understand that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to decimate the world, because we get down to it. It's like there's only so many Hitlers and Stalins. Yeah. And you know, there was bad people in the United States. You know, I'm not, but where they waged war on a certain people or went after them. My thought has been. So that's it. I don't think that the computers are evil. I just don't think that they're going to get that way where we all have capability of going to a certain amount of evil. We just do as humans. And so I think that it's hard for us to understand, like, they told them to do it, so this computer's going to do it. So that's my first thing is I think, I'm not sure if they would do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And what that would take. But then you hear it like repeating back some of the things. It's like, I think they probably do have a pretty good idea. So you don't want to put your head in the sand and say, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But my thought is that maybe somebody really smart, similar, that could say, you know what, we're going to hit click. And we want you to go out and find any computer program, any AI that's trying to kill humanity and decimate it. Shut it down at the very root.
That's true.
And so I thought, okay, well, we're going to come up, because in a way, it's like I've said, and I said this on one of the earlier podcasts too, because I only have so much limited brain power of what I can think of. By the way, maybe I'm going to exhaust this here in the next couple episodes, you know, all my brain power that I've got. But we've had nukes for quite a while. Yeah. You know, they've only been used a couple times to test, a couple times because we didn't understand the power that they really had when we dropped them on Japan, you know, and that we just were trying to avoid killing a lot of people. You know, we've had that with a lot of crazy people around the world that hasn't done that. So I guess there's a part of me that kind of feels like, you know, we've proven in some ways, right? We'll still try to suppress people and make them all woke or whatever, you know what I mean? Do certain things in a certain way. But at the end of the day, pretty much everybody from every side of any political thing's like, no, because if we start that, we know, right? There's enough nukes out there
where it's just
it's going to decimate the world. We don't want that to happen, you know. And so I don't know. I mean, but we're talking about a whole different time, and when some of the smartest guys like Elon and some other people like, hey, let's hit the brakes. Oh, we can't hit the brakes because somebody's still working on this. There's a lot of people that are trying to make this better. ChatGPT 3.5 came out, the end of last year?
Yeah, it was like December 28th or something like that.
And now we got 4.0, or 4, whatever they call it. And I've played with it. They've actually put more regulations on it.
Yeah, they have.
You know, so I've asked it a bunch of questions I'd asked the other one, and it would kind of give a vague thing like, well, you know, I'm not to do that. And it'll say, I've been programmed to not disclose, you know, that people have been trying to make drugs, or how would I do this thing, and it's a bad thing, they shouldn't be doing. Or I was asking it some stupid questions like, my daughter does lashes, and we were sitting there playing with it last night, and she asked it, what should I charge for doing lash extensions in the state of Utah? And it obviously could have cranked out, it's version 4, and it was saying, I've been programmed to not be able to say, you know, set a precedence on what prices should be at with it. But, you know, given that it depends on this, that, and the other. And it didn't give what I was hoping, right? I was kind of actually hoping for a little bit more stuff. But at the end of the day, anyway, it's kind of really interesting, right? Where we're at, because there is a program out there that's not been told to hold back. Right? I do feel like there's a bias that it had written, like the global warming, like right on the front screen it says, write an essay paper on the effects of fossil fuels and global warming. I mean, that's a slant, right? Whether you believe it or not, I'm not even saying one way or the other, right? We know global warming's happening. I'm very confused with it. So I was actually trying to go back and forth with why has the ice sheets increased in Antarctica?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it has actually increased. Why is it melting? I mean, how much is it actually what are the varying studies that show how much? Because you read one that says like it's gone up like 6 inches.
Yeah.
And then you read one that's like, no, it's only gone up like 3/4 of an inch.
Yeah. Well,
And
for
I'm
some
like,
reason,
don't we know?
maybe I'm completely off, but for some reason I thought global warming didn't actually have to do with anything in a sense of like the earth warming up, but just more extreme temperatures all the way around and more extreme weather. Am I completely off on that?
Well, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask on that. What they're saying is that they're tracking the particulates of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, whatever the carbon that comes from
the carbon
fossil
emissions.
fuels, carbon emissions, right?
Yeah.
And man, it's all over the board. So I was watching something the other day, and there was a hearing in front of one of the boards of Congress. It was a YouTube short, so I only got a very short snippet of it. But the guy had a panel of 3 experts on there, and of course the guy, I think he was more of a conservative Republican guy, saying, "Hey, you got this panel together. You want to take a guess what the actual percentages of our atmosphere is?" Carbon dioxide or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Carbon monoxide. Why am I saying
Is
that
it
right?
both, maybe? It's carbon emissions.
Whatever the emissions, whatever it
Yeah.
was, the percentage of what he was asking the question on that. And they guessed from like 4% to 8%. And it was 0.04%.
Oh, wow.
And so they've said it's gone up like significant, right? And it has, based on 0.04%.
Yeah.
I hope I'm quoting that right in there. I think it was. It just stuck in my brain and so the point is I think that we see certain things happening, and we have experts, and we can track some things. But one of the other things that was brought up is it was actually we're kind of at that colder. If you took the entire history of the Earth, we're kind of still in a cold period, right? It was much warmer when the dinosaurs and woolly mammoths and they were eating nice green
before the
grass.
before the ice age.
Yeah, before that, and which ice age? You know what I mean? It's like there's some different periods that are very interesting. But then there's been proof, and not everybody grabs it, right? They kind of actually say, well, that's still a hypothesis, But we pretty much proven that there's comets, So you got geologists saying, no, this is what happened. Anthropologists are saying, well, here's the migration of the way the people came, and here's how the animals were, whatever. Very complicated stuff, but man, people really get upset about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think there's this view, now we're talking about global warming versus the AI you're talking about, but I think, I want to look into that because that is a whole separate platform? That
The ChaosGPT?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I know it's separate from ChatGPT. I think it is a whole separate AI program that someone created and almost for this purpose to like see if it could do it or something, like some stupid thing. Like I don't know why anyone would ever want to carry that out. Just like I don't know, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why someone would.
It doesn't, but there's a part, I mean, we like to talk about catastrophes. You know what I mean? What would happen, like in an earthquake that was really bad, and we found certain things that have happened. So I can see some guys sitting around talking about it, and one guy in the room is, how can I maybe make that happen, right? I mean, right? It's a group, and maybe all of them are like, hey, well, you'd maybe want to do this, but none of the guys are going to do it, but this one guy does, right? So you're right. Why would he take it to that level, right?
Yeah,
where he actually is, and it gives him a way to back out even 1 or 2 times, like you're saying. But no, I want it to happen.
Exactly.
And so it's really interesting, I think, on that.
But I hadn't thought about what you said, how if there's like this, say there is an AI that's going to try and take over everything, there is opposition in all things. And so I feel like there will be people working against it, trying to make something just as good to take down the bad. I mean, that's how, for all of humanity's time on Earth, or however long this planet's even existed, there's always been the hot and the cold, there's the day and the night. Like, there's always opposing forces. And so I hadn't thought about that. That even if something were to happen to where there is an AI trying to take over, it's probably still not going to happen.
Well, so if it was motivated, let's say that there is that emotion, like it almost gets the emotion, right? Because that's emotion's what drives us.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm tired of being fat. I am going to get up tomorrow morning and go to the gym.
Yeah.
And no matter how bad you hate going to the gym, or even the benefits, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I like going to the gym. I don't know why I'm not doing it. Maybe I'm working too many hours. I'm eating bad food, right?
Yeah.
But something gets to that point. It's like, I am not doing this one more day.
Yeah.
We get up and go to the gym and we start doing the stuff we should do, right?
Exactly. Maybe someone calls you a name or something and it just sticks with you, and it's the emotion that you feel from that gets you to do something.
And I guess that's it. So if they get competitive, like if this machine can, maybe it's not emotion the way that we see it, but it's like, hey, I've got intelligence here, right? We're calling it artificial intelligence, but it actually starts, we've already seen some things that actually have some.
Yeah.
I would even say, since it's using language on this, that when I kept bringing up the things like, don't bring up the old argument you had. It was like one of those ones you could have the continual conversation. It was actually in Genie, not the ChatGPT, but Genie. At one point, I didn't realize I'd paid for both subscriptions. So I go back and forth.
Yeah.
And they give pretty much the same answer. But Genie was actually arguing with me a little bit more. Like it would say, yes, yes, yes. Because what I was saying is how oil and fossil fuels had changed the earth to make it more prosperous. That, it was helping people that were actually less wealthy countries, the poor countries, actually have energy to where they could actually start to change things and manufacture and do that. And I was like, I'm going to give it one hell of an argument, and it would say, there's no doubt that this is, and given the points, but what is it all for if our humanity is taken away, right? So that's the language, but it wasn't going to back down. It was not going to back down on that point, no matter what. And I said, do not bring that up. I don't want to hear your arguments on, right? So I'm like, and I'm waiting for the response, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't just give this up, And my wife's, she sticks her head in, like I was like talking to somebody. She's like, why the hell are you fighting with the computer? I said, I'm just testing it. It's not even what I totally believe. I know there's global warming. It's confusing to me why the South Pole's getting, more ice accumulation. It's very interesting, right? So it's just questions I was trying to get answers to, really.
Well, I'm wondering if it's almost like, because if we're the ones who created the artificial intelligence, if it's using language, if it's almost like a little kid, how they'll hear their dad say something and they'll just mimic it, and so it's pulling language from humans. And so I'm wondering if it's in a sense acting as a kid, where it's like just mimicking things that it sees on the internet, because that's all it. I mean, it has access.
It scrubs the internet, right?
Yeah,
it
exactly.
searches real quick.
Yeah.
And finds what it thinks is the right answer, the best answer.
And I think as you get older, you realize that a lot of the way you think about things is because of what your parents told you.
Yeah.
Like there are things like how, what was it the other day? I busted this myth that my mom had always told me. Something about, one of them was that if you microwave food, it takes all the nutrients out of it. That's like a myth that so many people think. I was bored and I just looked into it a bunch for like an hour or something, and it doesn't take any nutrients out of it. And I don't know why for the first 23 years of my life I thought that. Just because my mom thought that, she probably heard that from her mom, because microwaves were probably just coming out then and they were maybe nervous about it. And maybe the microwaves back then did take the nutrients out of it.
Yeah, I've thought about that.
But the ones now, it maintains everything. It doesn't do anything to the food, from what I've researched. And I was like,
I've heard that discussion.
Yeah.
There's a neighbor of mine that got on a kick of health, and his wife came home, and he had chucked the microwave. Right. He went to the next level. Like what a man. It's like, hey, she's going to thank me for this.
Yeah.
That's how sometimes we actually think. Okay, we really do. She's going to thank me for this, and it was like, you got 30 minutes to go to Lowe's or wherever the hell you want to go to get a microwave. I'm not going to heat something tonight,
Uh-huh.
you have 30 minutes. You're not sleeping here. It's like the type of thing that
Yeah.
you gave the ultimatum. It's like, I'm like, what the hell was he thinking? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I heard it from him,
Uh-huh.
right? So I'm like, yeah, okay, well, check that box for you.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so I've heard that too. I've heard
Yeah.
that many times, that you radiate, you're basically taking any value, health
Yeah.
out of the food.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of crazy things like that. And so so that was my other. So the other thought I had to that is the yin yang, whatever, on that is, I think there is an opposite in all things, and I think that really with everything, it's really kind of it's almost, it's this whole thing with free speech that we're talking about now. It's using language, right? The ChatGPT,
Yeah.
at least that part of it. We have others
Yeah, that are
AI that's actually doing some other things,
yeah,
right?
and even creating images, creating video, all
Very
sorts of stuff.
crazy.
Yeah,
Very crazy stuff, actually. And I've only heard more stuff that come out with it. Like we talked about it with the doctors,
yeah,
and what they were able to do I mean, they've been relying on AI for
Oh, yeah.
a lot of things for a lot of years on the reports that are coming back. Otherwise, we wouldn't get those test results back immediately, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they spin the blood, and it just calculates all the stuff that's there, and it's coming back with the best diagnosis, and I guess it could be wrong there too to some. Or it's just how you interpret the data, which is
Yeah.
actually one of the things I was going to talk about later on this about the attributes to have. But I do believe in the people, for the most part, want the best for the next generation, right?
yeah,
Even if we're all crazy, right? If we're all nuts, and we have the ability to wipe out the world, there's something about, like, there's always shows made about the one guy that he's still got kids, or he's got people that he loves,
Yeah.
right? And he wants a better world for them.
yeah.
It might have taken until he's 50 or 60
Yeah.
to see that.
Uh-huh.
He was on the crash course to destroy everybody and make as much money or whatever, and then he's like, it's not brought me any
Yeah.
happiness,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
I got a lot, I achieved what I wanted to do, but now I really am only thinking about how do I leave this world better,
Yeah,
so that the kid, my
Yeah,
my
exactly.
grandson and his friends and family and everything else is a better world.
yeah,
So I think that I'm going to have hope in that overall. But when I do see these war bots, and it's pretty amazing, drones that have been designed to fly and kill people.
Yeah.
I mean, face recognition, and
uh-huh.
yeah,
It
it's
is
pretty
some
freaky.
scary stuff, but which kind of leads directly into the next topic that we were going to discuss, was that we're kind of in a weird transition period in the world, I feel like, where there's a lot of new technology coming out. Things are accelerating at a quicker pace than ever. I mean, just last year, AI wasn't even ever talked about really.
Crazy.
And even like the prior year, NFTs, cryptocurrency, like all of that stuff has just been really ramping up the past few years. And I think that there's going to be, as we continue on this path of accelerated technology, things like that, there's going to be, the rich are going to get even richer, and then there's going to be, the poor are going to get even poorer. And I want to know what you think about that, because that's what I think, is that there's going to be people who are utilizing all of this and who are on the cusp of everything, and they're just going to be making loads of money the whole time. But then there's going to be people who don't really know what's going on. They have their job, but inflation's going crazy, and they're not getting the raise to match it. Stuff like that, where it's like, you can't make $60,000 a year really anymore, in my opinion. Like, I don't know how people live off of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, there are people that do it, but I'm just like, with the cost of everything these days, like, I don't know, are they just going to be like left in the dust? Like, it seems like the wages aren't coming up to.
Yeah.
I just want to get your whole thoughts on that.
No. I've been mixed on this a little bit, right? Because I've actually looked at this from a couple different angles, and it's the argument of socialism versus capitalism, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you went back to the core base of what we're talking about, in capitalism, you don't have to worry. Here's my view, and I think this is a pretty good example of what capitalism is. You don't have to worry about what products are the best,
Yeah.
because the market will drive it.
Yeah.
If there's a better product, and you came out with the first one, and somebody comes out with a new widget, the next computer, I mean, if you were sitting there with, even like, we go back recently with Apple came out of nowhere with that iPod,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know, I've seen the statistics. I think Sony they didn't manufacture that, but they did have like some rights. They were building some of those little MP3 or whatever.
Yeah, the MP3 players.
The players that and you could download some on it, but they weren't tied, so it wasn't tied to the device, to the, right? Steve Jobs comes along before Apple had really taken off with the iPad yet, or the new MacBooks, and the iPhone didn't exist, right? They started out with that, just how many things you could put on that.
Yeah.
It had a unique way of doing that little
It
dial
was like a little
thing.
touch. It wasn't even. Yeah, it was like a little bit of a touch screen type of dial thing.
Yeah, it had a round little dial, and you could
Yeah.
go forward, and like people, everything else before that had been like a button that would go forward,
exactly,
back, forward, reverse, play, pause, right? And it was a button, whereas this one did have the button in the middle.
And it was sleek too. I think it looked really nice the way Apple's always been really good at their design. And I think that was a big thing.
I mean, even I think, they even said that like when you got down to where that, like it got so small you could
the
clip it.
nano.
The nano, it was like, they even knew that probably wasn't going to be the future. They were just showing how many damn songs you could put on this little thing, right?
Yeah.
Which was on the heels of like CDs, right? And DVDs were coming out. And to download a DVD, right, a movie, it was like, even like the first ones were like, you could have 5,000 songs or one video, right? One movie that you wanted to watch. It's like, I remember people like be planning their vacation and they'd like get in the car, car with a screen, and you could tie it to your iPhone, iPod, iPod. And they were like, they got the latest and greatest, and it was like you could put 3 movies on. It's like, if you're going on vacation, which 3 movies did you want to have in the car? And it's like, well, you got to have one for the kids for sure, right? And if you had enough kids, they were like, all 3 going to be like, which Disney shows were you going to put or something, right? And so we go from that, right? So that's a pretty good example. I mean, where's Sony now? I mean, who even has an alternative MP3?
No one.
They dominated the market. They destroyed it. The only thing that's even there, right, is like you've got Samsung, and then you've got your platform where you can download your music from different platforms as well. But most of them are even trying to get it off of iTunes, right? I mean, so I mean, Apple used to not let that happen. Now they did, and then they dominated, right? So if you were the guy that came out with that one good thing, that's capitalism. That's perfect, right? And so it also rewards the guy that did come up with that, right? That took the risk. And then so we definitely have a disparity of, when I was a kid, still like people were millionaires, and then you find out that they were like the super wealthy, and they were like, had hundreds of millions, right? And the billionaires kind of, I think, been in my lifetime. I'm sure they technically were billionaires, and maybe they, Forbes has tracked the wealthy, whatever. But at the end of the day, we have billionaires that like, that top couple percent make more than the bottom 75%. I mean,
I think
it's mind-boggling, right?
It
I
might
mean, what
even
the
be
super
more than
wealthy
that.
are, right? To where literally they could start buying stuff and they would never run out of money because the interest would accrue faster than they could buy, right? Unless they were, but I mean, just like consumer goods thing, you couldn't really almost do it. And you factor real estate into it, and it's like, they just kept getting wealthier doing nothing, right?
Exactly,
It just kept going.
It is.
And so I think that's been happening. I know that there was so I think there's even other people, though, that will actually, cars were a novelty, right? They weren't even, it was for the wealthy. The people didn't even learn how to drive them. You would get a driver, right? And you'd sit in the back, and they'd drive you around on a Sunday afternoon.
Almost just like for fun. It wasn't even to go anywhere specific.
And then they started to tweak it a little bit, where they, maybe they could put chains on it and actually go in the snow and not get stuck, but you kind of have to be on a road that was compact, So there's those, and then Henry Ford comes out, right, and he's like, you know what? He went bankrupt a couple times trying to do different cars, and then he comes out with a Model T. It's like, I'm going to build a car, and there's actually, I read his biography. He actually, as his costs went down, he would lower the price of the vehicle. So he was making just an X amount of margin. He wasn't just going to say, I'm going to make 1,000 more, or hey, if I can sell it for this much, I'll sell it. It actually came out,
the rest,
and it would go down in price based on how fast he could kick it out. And so, and he wanted every guy in the factory in the world to buy one. And he did it, right? I mean, to where you see those old movies in downtown Chicago or New York, and there's horse buggies, going, and these cars are going in and out, and they're, I mean, like, they hadn't figured out any regulations
No,
with
yeah.
vehicles, right? I mean, they're
True.
everywhere, you know, and they're all Model Ts. They're all black. You can get it in any color
yeah.
you want as long as it's black. You know,
Yeah.
that's what he used to say to people. He was a weird dude, right? But so I kind of feel like Jobs came out with that iPhone, right? Even though it's expensive, and I actually heard somebody use this, so it's not my novel thought. There is that we have so much entertainment on this iPhone, right? That somebody's making 50 or 60,000. They don't have a lot of options to do things, but they still can communicate with everybody because they got an iPhone. They have enough money; they can have their Netflix and
Hulu,
Prime Video
yeah,
and Hulu. You know,
everything.
they
Yeah.
may not have everything, but they got a couple, right? They can watch, and so we have at the palm of our hand, and then
Or
your big screen at
YouTube
the house.
for free.
The what?
YouTube for free.
Yeah,
I mean,
YouTube's free. Yeah, exactly.
Unlimited videos on there.
So the combination of that, they're like, so there's that disparity. So I actually, some people were making comments that way. It's like, hey, and on top of that, what used to separate people was education and knowledge. Now, I know a lot of people that go into any college is almost out of, if you don't want to finance it, right? If you don't want to just go get the loans and do it,
Yeah.
people are like, I don't know, have the money to do that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, or to go to an Ivy League school. I mean, it's just crazy how much expensive they become. And, you know, the alternative to that is, which you and I talk about all the time. I mean, you got YouTube again. I mean, I do so many things throughout a year that I kind of know how to do it, but I don't know the order of it. Hey, YouTube, you know, I go on there and how do I patch this thing, right? Do it the right. And they've got 2 or 3 of them to choose from. And this guy is teaching out of Kentucky in his garage how to do this thing. And it's spot on. We're unlimited in what we get educated. So I think one thing that used to separate in the old days was you didn't really get much of an education if you,
When you didn't have access to
not even close.
anything. Yeah.
If almost all the smart people back then almost like self-taught themselves how to read. I mean, if they didn't have access to it, right?
Yeah.
And books were their way out, right? And so they learned how to learn
Yeah.
and read,
Exactly.
and then that kind of put them in a different element, you know, like Lincoln and some people like that he taught himself law. He taught himself how to read, you know, and they said he always had his nose in a book, right?
Yeah.
He was just a voracious reader, and here he's this big, you know, burly. Well, he wasn't too burly, but he was known to be
Tall.
a tough guy, tough guy that could split rail all day long, and came from Kentucky, nothing, right? A little log house, and so I think that was a big thing, the education gaps. That was a long way of saying that, but I think that's my 2 cents on it. I think the gap's there, but at the same time, sometimes I think we have to kind of pinch ourselves a little bit and say our quality of life, even for the people that don't have
Yeah,
the port.
that's true.
I mean, to have that iPhone, I mean, it's probably the single biggest equalizer of everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of time, because now we're to a place that
Yeah.
Elon Musk only has 24 hours. He can fly around the world. He can
Yeah.
have a kid track his jet, drive him insane because he can't get him to stop doing technology, right? He's got this kid just driving him insane because he can't get him to do it. And Bezos offers him some other little thing and he stops tracking his jet, right?
Yeah.
We got smart kids. There's a lot. I mean, the average kid nowadays are pretty smart and they've got pretty good lives. Now,
Yeah.
they might come from a dysfunctional home and their mom might beat the heck out of them and their dad is nowhere to be found, right?
Yeah.
So there's all those challenges we've got, but I mean, man, what you see, we've got great food.
Yeah.
And that's not worldwide 100%, but it's lifted
It's getting
all the
there,
way.
too.
It really is. I think
Yeah.
we've stamped out a lot of that stuff. So the rich might be becoming more super rich. I guess that's it's not a part of the, I guess, opposite of that. If these guys become super wealthy, they're innovating and coming up with new products that are still benefiting everybody, right?
Well,
And so I think that's it. Maybe not as much money, but the quality of life is really there because I do look at it and I'm like, my gosh, we really have a good life if you look at the past 6,000 years. Anything you want to end on?
no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please subscribe, like, forward our content to other people if you think it's worth sharing, and respond back to us. Let us know how we can make it either better or if we're doing it wrong in some way that you see and can help us make it better. We do appreciate it. Thanks very much. Have a great week.